I'm not going to agree to that. You can just give it to somebody else. Okay. So the next day he brings in his sheaf of paper in a nice brown bag. I get it ready to ship out. He keeps watching me all the time. He says, "That's okay with you, isn't it?" I said, "It's my job." "No, but it says." So I opened it up. I never read what they sent out, especially not in front of them. And so I read, and it says, the first one, "These men recommended for rotation home." And the first name was PFC Wayne M. McKirdy. Wow. So in about 2 weeks, maybe 3, we left. First part of December. "We'll be home for Christmas." Ah, dreamer. We shipped out of Incheon Christmas Eve. And that was only to get over to Sasebo, Japan, where we made another couple of weeks before we shipped out there. But can you see some of the things that were there? I wanted adventure as a kid. Boy, there was adventure there, more than I really wanted. There was travel. I got to see Hawaii. I didn't see Guam really. It was dark. But Japan, I spent quite a while in Japan. Korea, not too many that can say they drove north and south to Korea. I told that to somebody recently down there. And they said, "You mean South Korea?" "No, North and South Korea." But he was from the Vietnam era, and so naturally it was just South Korea. No, it was both. I got to travel. Another one that I wanted. I got home from there. Well, it took a while to get home. We flew over in 36 hours. We came back, well, we were on what was called a, oh, come on. Well, the General is a big ship. It can hold over 4,000. The one we were on can hold about 2,500, but there were 4,000 of us on it. We were stacked up in there, and it hit south because there was a typhoon coming over from the north. Most of them come from the south. Well, there was another one coming from the south too. So all of a sudden we veered and hit between the two, and that old ship, you know what? There was a couple of people sick down in those holes. They wouldn't let us out because that was too choppy. Well, I shouldn't say a couple of people. There might have been a couple that didn't get sick, but I doubt it. In that choppiness, it bent the propeller shaft. And for the rest of the way home, we went at 4 knots. It took us 39 days to come home. Well, you know, you often wonder how food tastes without salt. Well, about 4 days out of Seattle, we ran out of salt. In that salty ocean, we ran out of salt. And believe me, Army food is bad when it's salted. It's terrible when it's not salted. One of the things, however, before we left, we were stationed at Incheon for about 3 weeks, I guess, somewhere like that. Well, from the early part of December till the 24th of December. And while we were there, we got word that our outfit had to pull out in an emergency way. All of a sudden, the South Koreans went streaming past them. They didn't know what was going on. And then they found out the Chinese were making a push, and the Koreans were getting out of the way. And they just left us. They didn't tell our outfit. And our outfit had to fight their way out. I don't know if they had any casualties for that. I didn't. I wasn't there. Thank God. Okay. Got home from there, and gave me a month furlough and then back to Seattle where I dodged details for a little while, and then they finally discharged me. And, oh hey, I wanted to go to college. I got 4 years of college. Wow. Now I could do what I wanted. I was going into wildlife management. I knew that. Except God had continually been nudging me. When I worked in the forest of Idaho after high school, I had to walk 23 miles to a Methodist church. There was one 3 miles over, but we didn't have a preacher. Well, that's sort of a nudge. Maybe I could serve something like that. That would be fun. I got over on that plane. I told you there was a couple of officers with us. I think there was 3. One of them was a colored chaplain. He was telling me, oh, he sat right next to me, or I sat by him, I don't know which. And he was telling me his call to being a chaplain was simply that he saw the need and thought he could fill it with the proper training. And then over in Korea, oh wow, we saw a chaplain probably once every 2 months because there weren't enough of them. And besides, we were far enough forward that they weren't too interested in getting up there. God kept nudging. Okay, now I'm going to go to school and I'm going into wildlife management. Great. And then that dumb preacher at Wimbledon, he said one day, you know, too many of us give Christ the back seat instead of giving him the wheel. I said, oh, I know somebody like that. I'm saying, God, I'll serve you anywhere you want me to go, just as long as it's in wildlife. So I went into ministry, and I've never regretted it. I didn't know what kind of wildlife God had intended for me. I got the 2-legged kind. What did the Army do for me? I've tried to tell you. It did a lot. One last thing, however. When my health began to fail a few years back, I suppose 3 or 4, just about the time my wife became ill, so that'd be about 6 years, the doctor's bills were getting heavy. And then my neurologist decided to transfer to the VA. And they gave me 3 different doctors in a row. I said, no, it's enough of this. So I went to Jim down here, the VA rep, and asked him, how do I get into the VA? About 3 weeks later, I had an appointment with my neurologist. And I've been with the VA ever since. What did the Army give to me? Great. My brother-in-law was on the board at the Veterans Home. He died. And when they had their grand opening, his kids got an invitation to come in his stead to be part of that thing. And they called up and said, Wayne, Uncle Wayne, you got to go with us. So I did. And we took a tour of that place, and I told them, you know, I could live here. Friends, if you want to do any bragging about your state, a good place to start would be the VA, the Veterans Home. It's not the Old Soldiers Home anymore. That started in 1896 as the Old Soldiers Home for the Civil War veterans. But by the time of World War II, these are Navy guys, Air Force guys that are also coming there. And they don't like to be called soldiers. So we are now the Veterans Home. Okay. I think you've seen where I've been, what it's done for me. Now, if there's any questions, I'll sure be glad to try to answer them. I didn't tell you a whole lot about the Korean War. I told you my part. It was a good experience. I'm glad I had it. It was a bad experience. I would not wish it upon anyone. The veterans down at the VA and down there at the Veterans Home, I'm always hitting people who say, oh, I'm so grateful for what you've done. I'm so grateful for your sacrifice. Hey, I've got 2 legs and 2 arms and I even got a head. I didn't sacrifice. I can understand what they're saying. But I want to say, thank you. Because this place down there is yours. Thank you for what you've done for me. Okay, now questions. Yeah.
You mentioned when you were driving the truck that you got to drive all around. You got North Korea, South Korea. Could you tell us a little bit about your impressions of Korea? I'm sure you saw some that was hit by the war, but some that was still intact.
My biggest impression, that was a cold country. Man, was it cold. In 1 month's time, I think that was in January of 53, I think. No, 52, January of 52, I think. Anyway, in there someplace. We lost about 4 tanks because fuel oil wouldn't burn. It plugged up. So the smarties, they put gas in with it. Boom! We lost the tanks. But that's where I was going.
No, but what were your impressions of Korea?
Okay, so one of the first impressions that I got, and one that will always stick with me, is the fun of watching little kids skating around. Now that's fun anywhere, right? On ice with no shoes? No, they didn't have shoes, but they were still skating there. Korea is a beautiful country if you can get away from the war-torn parts. Some of the hills behind our outfit weren't too bad to hit you, and I used to really enjoy getting out. I took a bird study from A. Allen at Cornell by
correspondence?
Yeah, correspondence. And so I'd get out there and study the birds and stuff, and this was terrific. The people at that time, you have to realize they were a lot more destitute than today. I never saw a rich Korean. When we chased the Chinese back, when we fired those 8,000-some rounds that one day, Sigmund Reed was the president at that time, and Sigmund Reed came and presented us with the Korean Presidential Unit Citation. So I've got one little thing that's sort of special. Some of the government officials didn't look so poor, but believe me, the populations are ruled as a whole sure did. They've come a long way. And when I say all over North Korea, you have to remember we were about 60 miles north of the parallel, and the infantry would probably anywhere from 3 to 5 miles north of us yet. And my message run would be up in amongst them. And as far as being, that forward observer, we didn't use forward observers there as we do. They used that little grasshopper, that plane, and we spotted from the air, which made a lot more sense. Okay, any others? Your hand.
Can you just speak to some of the things that you were part of with the Barnes County Historical Society in your term there?
Well, when we started the building down here, we hired this here bum to be our curator. I didn't vote for him. He's laughing with you. Actually, you couldn't find a better one than West Palm for anything, I think. When we first retired, the Barnes County Historical Society met every month. Since I like history and maybe I'll do too, we would go to these meetings. And one night, there was some argument, and I made a motion. You can't make a motion, you're not on the board. I said, you didn't tell me this was a board meeting. It was always advertised as the Barnes County Historical Society. Well, I figured I would be part of that. So a very short while later, they asked whether I would run to be a board member. I told them I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know their history. I didn't know them. It'd be better just let me meet with you a while and learn you. No. So I ran and I won. And a week later they elected me president. That's just about as bad as down there at the home. I was only down there 3 months and they elected me president of the what they call I call it inmates council, but the resident council. They said, well, we'll be right behind you. Okay, you better realize the first thing I'm going to do is to try to find a way that we can move out of this little building or expand it, because we're turning away things that ought not to be turned away. This is Barnes County history that we're turning away. About 3 months later, McKirdy decided to close the fair store. McKirdy is sort of a friend of mine, and so I was helping him move stuff around. And looking down from the balcony up there, where Wes's office is now, oh man, what a museum! So I went to Orville. Orville also was a friend. Orville, how'd you like to give that to the Historical Society for a museum? Great idea! Okay, a couple nights later, we got the group together and went down to take a look. Now remember, this is a group that's going to be right behind me. They didn't say how far. The night we looked, one person quit. 4 days later, we decided to accept it. 2 more quit. So that was 3. Then, we were going to move into the place, take about a year to move in, so we really could have it fixed up. Except by now, we're getting close, we're in the summer already, and the, no, I'm jumping the gun there. When the word got out that we had that building now, the city fathers really got in an uproar. They didn't want a nonprofit there. Well, you can understand it. Orville had been sold at $720,000 value on that building. And that's a pretty good tax. And all of a sudden to take that off because we aren't going to pay them tax, they didn't like that. So we said, will you find us a person who will buy this at a fair price, or find us a different place that we can move to, and we'll consider it, because we don't want to antagonize the town. Okay. They offered us the electric place down Main Street. Wow, this will make a good one. It is a historic building, except that it's going to take probably $50,000 to $60,000 to even shape it up enough to use for a museum. And that's more than we had at the moment. So after a year, we gave them that year to figure out, after a year, we elected to go in. And when we elected to move down, that's when I lost the other 3. So 6 out of 12 is not too bad. The 13th is a point that he couldn't quit. It was also then just about that time that we realized we are not, as a volunteer group, we are not going to keep this place up the way it hire a curator. We had, I think there were 5 that wanted the job, and Wes was still in college, and you're going to hire a kid that's not even graduated yet for this job? You know, he came across so good that out of the 12, of course we had filled in, out of the 12 that could vote, I couldn't vote. That's why I tell them I never voted for him. So, out of that, and I shouldn't be saying this because he is back there and he's going to get a big head and then he won't do the job he's supposed to and all that.
All people would like it.
But the fact is, there were only a couple votes for one of the others, and the rest of the vote for him. And personally, I think we owe this. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where did you land at Perugia when you first came?
We landed at Tucson, way down in the south. We came just across from Sassagoda, Tucson.
We knew where Campo Air Force Base was around Seoul. That's where I landed.
In the Air Force?
No, I wasn't in the Air Force.
Oh,
That's where they flew us in.
we were as a truck driver. Now, we drove that first trip. We're just in the back of the truck with everybody else coming up through there, all the way from Tucson, all the way up through South Dakota and up to about 60 miles, well, up by Heartbreak Ridge. As a truck driver, I went to Seoul, Incheon, Tucson, Daegu, Chowan, you name it. Wherever there was a person to pick up in our area, our battalion Greyhound picked them up. So this, to me, this was great.
How did you like the smell when you first came?
I'm sorry.
How did you like the smell when you first came?
You know, one of my buddies had been made over in Japan and Korea. He had no sense of smell. Korea did not smell as bad as Japan. Japan was really atrocious because of their honey buckets.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Korea.
And
You have to explain what a honey bucket is.
it wasn't that bad. But you know, this kid that couldn't smell, he had eyes. He would yell, "Incoming aircraft." And none of us even heard it. And he was spotting it coming over the hill several miles down. And when he yelled, boy, you paid attention because within a few minutes, or a few seconds really, that thing was going to be in view. And you never knew what it was. Usually it was friendly for us, but it was there. That kid, he was from Leola, South Dakota. Made up with his sight what he lost in smell, but he really enjoyed those two countries. That kid also, he's one of the 3 that made mechanics when we got there. And one night, I don't think we'd been over there for over 3 or 4 months. He was on guard duty, and a new kid was on guard duty with him, and he came around the truck, and the kid, without even shot him right through the legs. He came home early. That's not the best. But an idea of what Korea was like. One night when I was on duty, a Korean soldier, South Korean, was caught sneaking out of our camp at the other end. I didn't see him. He was going out the other end. But they caught him going out with a pair of shoes. He had risked his life for a pair of shoes. That's, even the Army didn't have anything. So I always felt, man, are we fortunate. he got back, we didn't punish him, but you can bet his outfit did. What did they do to him? I would have been real curious. Okay, any others? Okay, I haven't looked at the clock. Oh, I'm about 20 minutes past due. Okay, thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you guys all for coming, and can we give one big round of applause for Wayne McKirdy? If you'd like to talk to Wayne after the presentation, he will be standing outside. His books are available if you are interested. Otherwise, thank you all for coming.